Okay, so if you're watching this tutorial, I'm assuming that you are a student at Reddam House and you're getting involved with the lighting. If you don't already know, it's run on a piece of software called QLight Controller Plus or QLC Plus. It has this little icon, and your main source of input will be the Akai APC Mini, which is a MIDI controller that obviously will send MIDI into the computer and you can control it. Before I get started, there's going to be different sections of this video that'll be laid out. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll have all the times will be in the description. If you're not, just scrub through until you find what you need, because this is probably going to be rather long. But I will have annotations to show or stuff that will pop up so you can scrub through and find that for each section. So what we're going to get started with now is just if you just need to go, you don't like, you just need to get started. It's about you've never done anything with QLC before, and you just want to do lighting. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to open up QLC Plus. It should be the only icon on the desktop unless anyone's messed around with it. So you want to go to the blue folder in the corner here, press open, look for Reddam House main show file. Then you can press open. Now you want to navigate over to Virtual Console and over to the green play button. Once you click this, you are now in play mode, and you should get input from your MIDI controller. Obviously on the console, on the screen, on me, everything's laid out with what it does. Yours might look slightly different to this. Don't worry about it, but you've got the 8x8 grid of the main buttons on the APC Mini, as well as the buttons on the side and the buttons on the bottom. So if you've never used it before, you can see what does what, and then you can go with it. Obviously for the faders, the first four are just colors. Then this one is fader 5, that is for color select, which are controlled by the two buttons labeled color forward, color back, combos forward, combos back. Number 6 is the color combos. Number 7 is down here, 8 and 9. Something to remember is fader 9 must always be up, as it is your master. So if fader 9 is not up, none of the lights will respond. If anything isn't responding, skip to the end of the video where there'll be a troubleshooting section, and then we will go over what to look for if your lights are not responding. Okay, so now we're going to hop into programming. So if you want to create just more stuff for this show, I'm going to show you how to do that. And if you're programming for a play or dances or something, I'm going to show you how to go into another show file that will allow you to do that. So first we're going to hop into functions down here. And in QLC Plus, everything is stored as a scene. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to click on the arrow here to open the scenes. And you'll see that everything is organized in folders. I highly recommend this. It is the easiest way to do it. So once you want to create a scene, you're going to click on this button in the corner here, which is new scene. And now you can label it. So we're just going to label this, what we're going to call it. So I'm just going to label it tutorial. Now you're going to want to go into the plus sign. Now if you're programming and you want to actually see it happen on the stage, make sure blind mode is toggled off and stay in play mode, which will allow you to work with it. Now we're going to select our fixtures. So I've already got a couple groups here, but if you want to select, so obviously group 1 and group 2 is just an even odd kind of pattern. Pairs is also kind of an even odd thing, but it's pairs, then it's right and left, the rows, and then just everything. So if you want to just grab all the lights, you can click on that, shift, click on the last one, and import. Now, in terms of starting to program, you've got a couple options. You can go to each light and do what you want individually, obviously with each channel. Or if you go to general, you can select the channel groups used in the scene, and you can control for all the lights. So whenever you're doing this, only select the channels you need. If you're working with color, select them all so it'll deactivate any colors you're not using. Never select intensity, because intensity is always controlled by a fader 9, this fader. So you should never have intensity worked into any of your scenes. So in our case, we're going to select red, green, and blue. Once you've selected those, you can go into channel groups, and you can see that if I bring up green here, it's going to take up green across all of the lights. If I bring up red, it's going to do the same thing. And obviously, if you keep it down, it's going to. If you want to do per light, it's also pretty simple. You can just go to each light and put the values in. If you want, you can copy and paste across different lights. So if you see if it says copy current values to clipboard, but this only works if you use the same light. So I can copy light 1 to light 2 because they're the same type, but I can't copy light 1 to light 4 because you can see the channel arrangement is different. It'll just paste it channel for channel, and that is not going to work. So generally either do channel groups or go and do each light individually. And that is it for creating scenes. It's literally that easy. You can work in strobe, the mixed colors, whatever you need to work in. Now, if you're programming for a show, you might want to use a cue list. This means you can program all of your scenes, put them in a cue list with times, with fade times, and then you can just press go, go, and it will run through it. So if that's what you want to do, all you have to do is select this green arrow up here. I haven't mentioned this, just quickly. There is a written version of this that will be available from your teacher. If you need that, just ask them for that. There'll also be a link to a Google Drive version of it in the description, or as I said, if you're not watching this on YouTube, then ask your teacher. So we're going to select this. This is the tracer icon. Simply click that, label it. So again, I'm going to label it tutorial. And now before we get started, there's a couple settings you want to do. The first is you want to come down here to fade in speed and fade out speed and set both of these to per step. Now we want to go to this clock, look for common hold, and set this to infinite. What that means is in your cue list, the lights will only change, or the next cue, the cue list will only advance or go back when you give it the order to, or you tell it to, basically. So once you've done that, we're going to close that, and we're going to add our scenes that we want to work with. So I'm going to just grab all my colors here, and these will obviously be your cues that you've created already. Now, once you're in here, you can set your fade in time. So if you remember, it's working in milliseconds, so 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. So if you want a 5-second fade in, you can set 5,000, and then it'll be 5 seconds. And then you can obviously go and do this with the director or the choreographer who's ever doing lights with you to set exactly how much you want for the fade in and the fade out. Generally, you don't need to use the fade out. That's only if you're fading out at the end. But even then, it's just easier to use a manual fader along with the cue list, which we'll get to in a bit. So I would never really set fade outs, just set fade ins, and then it'll fade across. And yeah, that's it for setting up the cue list. Now we're going to hop into the virtual console to finish setting up the cue list. The first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to go out of play mode. So just press the red, say yes, and now we are in programming mode. So if you want to create a cue list, all you have to do is go to new frame. This is very important. Get your frame, put it somewhere where it's like, and adjust it to your size, adjust the position, whatever you need. Now with it selected, you want to select the cue list icon, which is over here. Select that, bring that in again, just change the size to fit and everything. And now finally, with a bit of work firstly, now you can go to the fader and just click set a fader and put this in. So now once that's done, the one important thing to make sure is that this green tick is active. Obviously if it isn't active, it won't be green, so set it to green. Now there's a couple settings you have to do. The first one is the slider or the fader. So go into that, go to widget properties. You can also accomplish this by Control E, and go to submaster mode and just say switch to submaster mode. That's it. If you want to label this, you can label this in here as well. Also, you can add external input from the MIDI device, but that'll be a different section of the video. So press OK. Now you want to go into the cue list itself. You want to right click on this, say widget properties again, and select your function over here. Now, once you're in here, you find your chase that you want. In our case, tutorial, and that's it. Now you can do a couple things here. So if you want when you want what the chase is going to do and it's not active, or the next previous buttons are going to do when it's not active, I'll just leave this as run chaser from first last step as the default. Now you want to go into the next queue. So here you can set up keys to actually activate it going to the next queue or to the previous queue. So in this case, I'm going to show with a keyboard. Again, as I said, in this section, you can set up the MIDI device. That'll be a different section. So all you have to do is click on this keyboard icon and then enter your key combination, and it should go away. So you can use Control, you can use Shift and a key, you can't use Control, or you can use Alt and key. I don't recommend doing either of those. If you just need to do it, just find a key that works. If it doesn't go away after you've clicked it, all you got to do is press OK. Don't press Enter, because then it will set Enter as the key combination. So press H, press OK, and it's done. And then you can set one for the key combination for the previous. And I'm just going to set this to G for in my example. And that is basically done. So now you can see if we hop into this, we can actually press the keys. It'll give you a countdown if you've got phase on it of how much longer the fader has got, or how much longer the fade has got. And then we can run through the cues. What's nice about having the fader here is you can do manual fade outs if you need to for some reason. And if you open the little view icon here, which allows you to have a very basic 3D rendering of the rig, you can see that as you go through the cue list, it will change, and then I can dim this out if I want to completely. This is the fixture monitor while I'm here is a very useful thing to use if you're programming at home or if you just don't have the rig on, because you've got a very basic 2D view. It won't allow you to visualize the strobing and the mixed colors, but it does allow you to just, if you need to program colors, you can do that. And that is it for setting up a cue list. So it's fairly simple. As I said, there's a written version of this available if you need that. But yeah, so if you haven't followed, go back, watch that, or read it. The next thing we're going to go over is buttons and faders. So as you can see here, I've already got quite a lot that are pre done for you. So if you are just adding onto here, it's pretty simple. I will mention that there is something called the blank show file. The blank show file already has the whole grid with the MIDI controller mapped to it, but all of these are blank, so you'll be able to assign for whatever you want. So if you're creating a show and you don't want to use the show file, please make a copy of the blank show file and edit that. Don't under any circumstances edit this show file or the blank show file, because these are master copies that are just to be used for running a show. If you need to edit them, create a copy of it and edit from there. If something really bad happens, there'll be a link in the description again if you're watching on YouTube, and a link at the end of the manual to a Google Drive folder that will allow you to download copies of both of these in case something happens and you need them. So now we've got that out of the way, let's move on to creating buttons and faders. So you'll notice that there's 4 icons up here. The first is button, which is a new button. Then there's new button matrix, new slider matrix. Now, the slider and button matrices are actually very useful because it allows you to create like this, a grid of them, a grid of buttons, or just a row of sliders that are all the same size, the same width apart, and without you manually having to do it. So I'm just gonna show when you want to create a new button matrix, just tap on that. You can select how many horizontal buttons you want, how many vertical ones you want, and the button size. You can also predefine what you want the functions to be. We're not going to go over that. Just for an example, if I set this to 4 by 4, you can see that it will create a 4 by 4 matrix if you need that, but we do not. So the first thing you want to do is just create the button. It's fairly simple. You want to move it to wherever you need and adjust the size. Now you need to right click and either say widget properties or Control E. And now you want to assign a function to it. So if you just say attach a function to this button, you can now go find what you need. So let's say we want it to be green. Now if you want to, you can change the label. I'm going to leave it as green, but you can make whatever you want. Again, here you can use key combination to either assign a key to it or again external input. That'll be covered a bit later. Now down here is where you can do a couple things. If you want it to, you can set it to toggle on and off. So that means you're going to press it once, it'll switch on. Press it again, switches off. Flash function. This one, as it says, only work for scenes. You can, as long as you're holding it down, it will work. Then toggle blackout is if you need to quickly go to blackout during a show and you want it mapped to a button, you can do this. And then in the middle of a show, if you need to, you can press blackout. So we're just going to leave it set up as it is. Now for a fader, it's a bit more complex. So we create a fader here. Again, right click, widget properties. You can see that there's a couple versions. Submaster is only used in frames when you want to use it with a cue list. Level is when you want to just assign it to actual channels, physical channels of the light. So you have to go through and select each channel that you want it to control for it to work. And playback is, if you say switch to playback mode, it will allow you to assign a function to it. Then just in the general section, you can name it, you can make it a knob or a slider, whichever one you want. And then again, down here is external input. I'll get to that a bit later in regards to the MIDI controller. So that is setting up a fader and setting up a button. So that's really all you need to know within the virtual console. You might want to add a clock for whatever reason. Clocks are dope. If you want to add a picture, you can add a picture to it. I wouldn't recommend it. So if there's anything, there shouldn't be anything else you need to actually use. So now we're going to hop into working with the MIDI controller. Now the MIDI controller isn't that hard to set up. Quite honestly, it's fairly easy. The first thing you need to do is you need to make sure this is also a troubleshooting step. If you're not getting any input from the MIDI controller and you're in play mode and nothing's coming through, you want to go to input output. You want to go to universe 2. Make sure you're there. You want to make sure that MIDI, APC MIDI input is selected and APC MIDI feedback is selected. Once that's done, if you need to map stuff, we'll go over mapping a button and mapping a slider, because that's all you're going to do. So you want to hop into your widget properties again and go to this external input box here. Now, all you need to do is say auto detect, press the button on the MIDI controller, and it'll do it. And then obviously if you say auto detect and you change it, it'll change the setup. So this makes it very simple to set it up. It's not hard at all. And then for the fader, it's also fairly simple. You got a widget properties, again, external input, press auto detect, push up the fader, and it will detect it. And it's literally that simple. If you really need to, you can go choose, and then you can enter the channel number manually, but don't do that. Just say auto detect and push it up. And that is it for setting up the MIDI controller. Now, alright, so in certain situations, you may need to add fixtures to QLC so that you can control them. This could be if you are bringing in a production or you're doing a play or something and they've rented in fixtures, or if somebody else is using the hall and you've been asked to help with lighting and you are going to be controlling these fixtures, you need to add them. Now, the first thing you need to understand is DMX. DMX is a communication protocol that is used by lights to communicate with one another. So I'm going to put a link in the description at the beginning of the manual, and that link will take you to this page, which is called What is DMX 512 and Learn Stage Lighting. Just side note, Learn Stage Lighting is a pretty cool website if you want to if you need to learn lighting. And this just gives you a breakdown of what DMX is if you want to learn it properly. It's pretty short. It's a nice basic breakdown. But the basics of it is in QLC, the fixture number or the channel number, as I'm going to show you in a bit, needs to match the channel number on the light. It's pretty simple to set these up. You can on the light, you just use the menu or use the user manual, or whoever's setting it up or bringing it in, the rental company can hopefully do it for you. Now, once you've understood that, so basically all that needs to happen is your lights can't be on the same channel unless they are the exact same light and you want them to mirror each other. Because if the lights are on the same channel, they're going to basically do the exact same thing if they're the same fixture, and if they're different fixtures, it's not going to work. And the other thing to understand is that lights have multiple channels, so lights can have 40 channels. So you need to see which channel that's going up to, and you can only patch after there. So that's just what you need to understand. As I said, that Learn Stage Lighting link will be in the description and at the beginning of the manual, and that is an invaluable resource that will help you just understand it as much as possible. And then once you understand that and you've got figured out what channels you need, now you can hop into QLC to patch them. Now, please note yours might look a bit different to this because we might have changed the channels around. Don't worry, it's still fairly simple. So the first thing you want to do is you want to be in the Fixtures tab. So if you're not in it, just click into it. Now you want to go to the plus sign. Next, you're going to need to find the fixture type. Now, if you've rented in it, they should tell you the name of it. You should be able to find it in here by just searching it. So, for example, if you rent in, I don't know, a Mac 250, for example, you can just search it and it'll bring it up. Or you can always obviously just scroll to the menu, find the manufacturer, Martin, and find the fixture. Once you've done that, or if it's just one of the school's lights that they might have bought or something, you can come down here. They'll be labeled school LED and school RGBW, and I'm going to work with these to set it up quickly. So once you've got this, you'll see that you've got multiple choice, obviously. So you want to select the one you're using. So in this case, school RGBW. Now for certain lights, mainly moving heads, they'll have different modes. So if you rented in a moving head and you selected it, make sure you check the mode. Make sure speak to the person you rented it from to figure out what kind of mode it's in, and then you can set it properly. So we're going to go back to this one for the rest of this tutorial. So with school RGBW, you want to name it if you need to. So in our case, just name it light number 13. Then you want to make sure it's on Universe 1. It has to be on Universe 1 or else it won't work. Now you want to set your address. As I said, the addresses can't be overlapping. You'll see if I try to set it to address 2, it'll tell me the address is already used. And if I try to set it to any address that is already used, it will tell me. So by default, it will give you a address that is not being used, so in this case 8. But just if you set it differently on the light to like channel 200, then you can do that. Remember with DMX, you've got 512 channels that you can use. Obviously, you have to adjust for how many channels the light has. So down here, you can see it tells you how many channels it has. So it says 6 channels. So for this light, if you also go to an address that doesn't have enough channels after it, it'll give you an error. So I go to 511, it won't let me, but if I go to 510 or any of the 5 1s, it won't actually let me because it doesn't have enough channels. So make sure your channel is selected correctly and that you've got enough space in between it. So I'm just going to say channel 200 because I've got enough space there. Then I can say if I want more than one, you can do that. Also, if the lights have a dip switches on them, it will give you a little tool that allows you to check what dip switches need to be up and what dip switches need to be down. So that's it for patching. Now, once you've done that, you can actually say OK, and now it's patched. Now, if I go into functions and I say new scene, I can select the light as a light. It's there. Just as I said, if you're into moving heads and you're using those, a thing to remember is first get the name of it, then you need to figure out what mode it is in, because most of them will have two modes. And then remember most intelligent lights, and intelligent light is a light that has multiple channels of control or can be controlled directly via DMX. They will have quite a few channels, so you can see like a Mac 250 has 13 channels. That's what I said about it having quite a few channels. So yeah, so patching is really simple. It's you just need to work it out. As I said, go to this link, which will be in the description if you're on YouTube, and at the beginning of the user manual. And here you can quickly figure out what it is. Fairly simple. You don't, when it says can I use my cable, you can. It's not really a real thing. So yeah, so just read through this, make sure you understand it before you get any lights. Then just for the school, what you want to do is to patch it into DMX. You'll want to go to the last light in the rig, which is on the third row, far right. We've already run a cable down. If that is gone, plug a XLR cable into the output of that light, run it down, plug it into whatever else you're using, and you're good to go. So yeah, that is it for patching. Okay, so if you are programming a play, or if you are doing something where you want a basically blank show file that doesn't already have anything programmed, well then you want to work in the blank show file that has already been created. So that you're not starting from scratch. We have to patch everything and do all that. First, you're going to open Workspace. Please make a copy of it. Don't edit the original. If for whatever reason the original has been edited, there are links in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, and links in the beginning of the manual to download copies of this, either if they've been edited or if you want to work on them at home. So I'm going to open the copy I've already made. Once in, you can see that all the buttons are already created. So you can, as soon as you've created scenes, you'll be able to map straight to these buttons. These buttons already have the MIDI inputs mapped to them, and so you can just assign stuff and they will respond to MIDI. As well, on the virtual console, there's two cue lists that respond to these two chases, cue list 1 and cue list 2. They are also linked to these faders, which are already programmed into the MIDI controller. Under functions, there's already a few just basic colors programmed, as well as all these folders. The folders are great. I recommend organizing everything in folders, especially if you're doing like a play. You can organize them per scene, and if you're doing like a dance festival and they're programming the lights, you can program per dance. Once you've added it, obviously to put everything into a folder, once you've got a scene, it's really simple. You just drag and drop it. If you want to relabel the folder, just double click. I would leave the C dot in place because then it stays in order, and then just add in what you want. The nice thing about using this as opposed to just creating your own show file from scratch is all the fixtures are already patched, all the channel groups are already created, everything here is done. I mean, mapping all the MIDI buttons to buttons takes forever, so that's already done for you. So you're able to just get started and hop straight into programming without doing much else. So yeah, so use the blank show file if you can. If you're really adamant on creating your own one, go ahead and do it, but I would recommend using the blank show file. As I mentioned, please just create a copy of it and work on that. Okay, so when using QLC Plus, you can and likely will experience issues. This is obviously what troubleshooting is for. The next couple of sections will be on troubleshooting, so that should you encounter any issues, you are prepared to deal with them. The first thing we're going to cover is troubleshooting the MIDI controller. Now please be aware that troubleshooting the MIDI controller and setting up the MIDI controller are fairly similar, so do not be alarmed when you see those similarities. The first thing you need to ensure is that your MIDI controller is actually plugged into the computer. For this, you'll want to grab your USB A to B cable. In case you don't know what it looks like, it has a USB B connector on one side and a USB A connector on the other side. The USB A connector will obviously be plugged into the computer, and the USB B connector into the car APC MIDI. Now, if you've got it plugged in and it's still not working, you'll want to go to Inputs Outputs, Universe 2, and ensure that it is patched. Now, please do not be alarmed if your Inputs Output section does not look exactly like this. It could be different. All you're worried about is APC MIDI. You want to make sure it's patched into input and into feedback. Once that is done, you should be receiving input. If you're still not receiving input, you have likely not set up the widget correctly. For this, you'll want to right click on the widget, whether it be a button or a fader, go to widget properties and check the external input section. Obviously, if it isn't, you'll want to press auto detect, select your button, custom feedback 1. This is the same as earlier in the video when we covered setting up the MIDI controller. For fader, widget properties, external input, move the fader up and down. Now, if you've checked both of those issues or both of those solutions, should I say, and you're still not receiving input, there's a couple other possibilities for what could be wrong. The first thing is that the USB port on the computer might have died. For this, if this was the case, you would not have actually seen the APC pop up under Universe 2. If the cable is broken, again, you won't see it pop up under Universe 2, or if the actual MIDI controller itself is damaged. If the MIDI controller itself is damaged, you might still see it pop up, but it might not be able to send any MIDI data out. For this, please consult a teacher or somebody higher up in the school that can assist you with these issues. Obviously, if it is popping up in Universe 2 or in any of the universes and you're seeing it in software, it is likely a software issue, so please go make sure you're set up correctly and go make sure all of that is okay. And with that, we come to the final part of our video, and that is troubleshooting DMX output. Now, obviously, lights need DMX input to be able to be controlled, and for that, we have the Intec DMX USB Pro. This little device takes a USB signal and converts it to DMX signal. So if you aren't receiving output, you need to actually make sure that the DMX USB Pro is plugged in. To do this, first plug the USB A side of its USB A to B cable into the computer, or ensure that it is already plugged in. Next, you'll want to plug in the USB B side into the Intec DMX USB Pro. Finally, you will want to take your DMX 5 to 3 adapter. This has a male XLR with 5 pins on the one side and a female XLR with 3 pins on the other side, and plug the 5-pin side into the female 5-pin XLR on the Intec DMX USB Pro. Now you will want to take the 3-pin XLR labeled LEDs and plug that into the 3-pin female XLR of the converter. Once that is done, if you are still not receiving any DMX output, you'll want to go to Inputs Outputs, Universe 1, and simply find DMX USB, DMX Output 1, and select that. If you do not see the DMX USB here, simply restart QLC and it should be there. Now, obviously, if you aren't picking it up at all, that could mean there is a issue with the actual converter or with the USB cable. If you are picking it up and you've selected it as output and you're not actually getting any control of the lights, there could be an issue of either the DMX 5 to 3 adapter is broken, or there's an actual issue with the cable running all the way to the stage. In this case, please consult with a teacher, and then you'll be able to figure out a solution to the problem. Now, if something happens mid-show, then it can be very stressful, but you need to remember, if you lose DMX output mid-show, just remain calm. You simply want to close QLC Plus as soon as possible, essentially. So if it isn't responding, Control Delete Task Manager, close it down, restart it. If you might need to unplug and replug the DMX USB Pro, but just remember to remain calm and you'll get it sorted. If QLC crashes in the middle of the show, the DMX USB Pro will hold whatever was lost, and then you can quickly restart and get it back in. So a crash is not that much of an issue. It happens. If you want to avoid crashes, you might want to consider closing QLC Plus during an interval and reopening it just before the show starts, or trying not to leave it open for long periods of time. That can cause issues. Lastly, please just, as mentioned, don't plug in and unplug anything unnecessarily, because that can also cause issues. Now, thank you for watching this, and thank you for taking an interest in lighting. As mentioned, there are timestamps in the description if you're watching on YouTube, or you can scrub through and find what you need. There's also the written manual that will be available from either the description or from your teacher. If it is in the description, then just speak to your teacher, and then it might not be ready yet, but it likely is. So thank you for watching this. If you've got any issues, please just scrub through, figure it out. QLC is a nice piece of software to use because you can go home and learn it. So you're welcome to download this on your computer at home and learn it there so that you can apply it at school. And then obviously, if you've got any real issues, you can consult QLC's manual. It has their own manual. You can go to the little question mark here, and then it's got user documentation. There's also the website where there's a forum if you want to really ask any questions. So thank you. Good luck with lighting, and I hope you enjoy QLC Plus.